Okay, good morning, everyone. Good morning, sir, Dr. Badion, our professor, and to my classmates in the subject EDUC 608, Advanced Policy Analysis in relation to educational management. So, in this subject, I am tasked to present the topic fundamentals of policy. And I will just share to you, present to you the important things or the highlights of this um, topic, the fundamentals of policy. So let me start now my presentation. Okay, so the fundamentals of policy in the overall concept or the uh, preview of this topic, the fundamentals of policy, it explores the policy making as both a problem solving process and a political process. And it also a policy making from the perspective of different focal actors and institutions, including administrative agencies, legislators, the courts, the mass public, the interest groups, and the media. And it also entails the fundamentals of the policymaking process that includes the evaluation and design of research to inform the policy decisions. Also, effective team work in analyzing the issues and making the policy recommendations, writing and speaking effectively to policymakers. So, from all these things, exploring these issues will require us to address questions like how and why does something come to be seen as a uh, public problem? For example, problem in the society, problem in a city or in a local area. So these are the questions requiring why or how and why does something come to be seen as a governmental response that we require a governmental response while others fail to get attention. Why do we need public policies? What is the purpose of this policy? Why we need public policy in our government, in our society? What determines the content and the nature of public policies? And who also decides the public policy? Who decides for the priorities? What are the priorities that the public or the government need to address? Then, does public policy ever accomplish anything worthwhile? So these are the somewhat like questions in relation to the uh, view, general view of these fundamentals of policy. So the highlights of my presentation, of my report. So first, I will present to you the problems of usage of the policy, then definition of educational policy and policy making, then next types of policies, types of policymakers, then the scope of policy, characteristics of policy, and the purposes and functions of policy. So from these highlights, I have just picked some important things from this subtopic that I have presented to you. So first, the problems of usage of policy. So according to these um, persons, his Moeller and Hope in 1995, they have elaborated a simple but powerful categorization of uh, problems of policy. The first category uh, uh, talks about the relevant and available knowledge. Then the second category is the norms and values at stake. The first dimension, the first category, refers to whether there is or not certainty in regards to the knowledge available about the problem. Then the second dimension refers to whether there is an agreement in relation to the values linked to the problem. So that is the two categories of the problems of usage. Okay, next, the types of problems. So first, problem is what we call structured problems. These are cases where the problem is clearly defined from the term structured. So the problem is clearly defined, identified. Then there is someone in charge of solving it, and a general agreement from the group uh, of what this solution would entail. So they have identified the problem, and there is an in charge uh, for the solution of the problem. What would be the solution in solving that problem? And there is also an agreement, okay, agreement from the body that this will be the solution that will be used in solving the problem. The next type of problem is unstructured problems. So these problems are opposite of the former and are also labeled as wicked, ill-structured, and messy. These problems are complex. So unlike the first problem, the problem of the body, the group is identified, is clearly defined. Uh, they have really identified what is really the problem. Then for the second problem, the problem is not identified or unstructured, uh, ill-structured, and messy. These problems are complex. There are no clear boundaries, no specific actor responsible for solving them. The problem is not identified, clearly identified, and also the solution. They don't have, they did not identify a, a, a solution that will solve the problem. Okay. Okay. Next type of problem is moderately unstructured problem, or lack of agreement on values. In these problems, there is a general confidence about the technical aspect of the problem, meaning a certainty in relation to the knowledge, but no agreement on the values involved in the problem. So that is the moderately unstructured. This include, for example, issues such as how to implement a new program to support the educators, entrepreneurs, or in relation to education uh, in public schools. Then for the next type of problem is called moderately unstructured problems, it focuses on the uncertainty of the knowledge. So this one, in this problem, there is an agreement on the values. They have agreed on the values, the approach, okay, on uh, on how to handle this problem, but no certainty about the knowledge or the technical aspect of the problem. For example, For example of this problem is to how to tackle HIV/AIDS. Another example of this might be the situation where there is a significant educated or youth brain drain from a country. The general opinion is that this should be stopped, but there is not a clear understanding of why it is occurring or how to tackle it. So that's it. There is an uncertainty of the knowledge about the problem. Next, the definition of educational policy and policy making. Education policy consists of the principles and government policies in the educational sphere, as well as the collection of laws and rules that govern the operation of education systems. Examples: it includes the early childhood education, kindergarten through to grade 12 or 12th grade, and 2 and 4 year colleges or universities, graduate and professional education, adult education, and job training. Therefore, education policy can directly affect the education people engage in at all ages. Then also education occurs in many forms for many purposes through many institutions. Then it talks about the policy making that is a risky, or policy making as seen or viewed as a risky business. One group of analysts has acknowledged, or even many analysts, or even psychologists, sociologists, they have viewed, they have seen, uh, even to the entrepreneurs. Policy making is a difficult task, difficult job, and it takes um, many brains, many efforts to come up with a policy, or even in undergoing the process of policy making. So policy making is a very big, or um, a very difficult task to handle. Also, policy making is the activity of deciding a new policies, especially by a government or political party. Types of policies. So, first type of policy is the um, originated policies. Policies, um, originated policies are formulated by top level management by reference to the objectives of the organization and their achievement. So it originates from the top level management, guided by the objectives, principles, and objectives of the group or the organization. The next type of policy is implied policies. These implied policies are those evolved by themselves when a series of decisions are made by the managers over a period of time. So they come up with this decision, this policy, from the different decisions that the leader or the manager was able to make. Okay, they able to come up with a decision because of that previous decisions that they have made. The next, appealed policies. Appealed policies are formulated at the higher managerial level in response to appeals. Respond A response to appeals made by the lower managerial levels. From the lower managerial levels, they have uh, that the top level managerial level, they respond to the appeal of the lower level management. So that is why they come up with that decision, that policy. Okay. Next is the externally imposed policies. So it talks about the policies which are influenced by the policy of the government, public agencies, trade unions, and also trade associations. Okay? Next are the types of policymakers. The first type of policymaker is the quicksand, the absorber of ideas and time without sentience. Then the next type of policymaker, the validation seeker. This is someone who was already thinking that the intervention you have researched might be a good idea. Okay, they validate. They validate whether this policy would be effective or not. Then the innovator. This group ranges from people who are excited about the hot new thing. They keep on coming up with ideas. What would be the from this policy that they were able to make, or the present policy, they keep on changing, they keep on innovating, they keep on developing the policy. This is also to address the current issues. This is also to address uh, the present situation. Uh, but it also entails about the coming up with the best idea, the best thing, the best decision, the best solution in solving some issues in the group. Then also the fourth type of policymaker is the bonus seeker. Okay, next, the scope of policy. Policies and procedures are updated and developed as part of the day-to-day workings of the organization. Policies and procedures are modified and new ones developed through a range of processes. So what are these processes? So these are the processes. First is the response to perceived issues, problems, external circumstances, including formal and informal complaints. Then also regular review is part of the process. Then board initiative, management team or staff initiative, then external review from the uh, other or representative from the external group, then system improvement reports or SIR. So this report, it also um, evaluates the process, whether the process is effective, the decision that they have made is effective for the whole group. Characteristics of policy. First characteristic of policy is flexible. The policy should be flexible in execution. The second, the policy should be an effective instrument for the execution. Then the policy should be defined clearly defined. Then also the policy should be reviewed periodically. Okay, it should be reviewed. It should be evaluate, monitor. Then the policy should follow established and conventional procedure in normal circumstances. Next, the purposes and functions of policy. The conceptual difficulties of policy. So this one, The conceptual shift to policy represents to no small extent and a return to first principles, a concern with philosophical, historical, and socio-cultural underpinnings as opposed to direct action through programs and projects. Um, it talks about the shift. Uh, for example, the shift should be no more than a retreat to philosophical debate. Then there is a disillusionment with massive programs uh, such, but the discontent should provoke a more constructive response than the verbal quibbling. Because of the abstract nature of the policy, okay, the policy is difficult for many educators to debate. Um, that is why many educators debate about the content of policy. But that is the nature of the policy, that the policy is made just um, to make the educators work or really think, um, really create um, for the solution of the different problems in the group or the organization or in the society. That is the nature of the policy. Then, some distinctive features of policy. Policy may be understood in many terms of its purposes and functions, its advantages and limitations, or its special features. The purposes may be both general and specific, but the concept of policy has both a full and a limited meaning that is not always clear. For example, the policies, programs, and functions of government are often used collectively and synonymously. Too often, the term is an empty noun that serves only to anchor an area of agricultural policy or even any type of policy in other sector. Foreign policy, economic policy, labor policy, and etc. This usage more or less makes the term synonymous with the activity itself. For a clarification of policy in higher education, it is advisable to distinguish quickly between public policy as reflected in government. Okay, public policy. We talk about public policy. It reflects the government, the concept of the government, the actions of the government, okay, and institutional policy, as it reflects the autonomy and independence of our separate colleges and university. Policy functions and issues. If the purpose of policy is to provide a general, overall, rational canopy for the specific actions, procedures, or operations, it should follow the specific functions of policy, our decisions, plans, and programs. Okay, these are the functions of policy: the plans, decisions, and programs. Decisions, plans, and programs therefore would seem the specific, concrete action that would logically follow from policy as a body of agreements and commitments. Policy, therefore, is not so much a sufficient condition for the execution of plans or decisions and even programs, as it is a necessary condition for the meaningful structure of such actions, any actions of the group, organization, or activities. Okay, so that ends my presentation. So I would like to uh, present this quote from Elizabeth Dole before I end my presentation. The best public policy is made when you are listening to people who are going to be impacted. Okay, so that is a very good um, quotation from Elizabeth Dole. Okay, so that ends my presentation. I hope you learned something, and Merry Christmas to everyone, and also advance Happy New Year, and God bless.